I was very caring and spoiled my husband. Instead of being grateful, he acted entitled. While I was pregnant, I found out he was cheating. I decided to divorce him for our child's sake, but right after I gave birth, he brought his lover and tried to make her hold the baby. At that moment, a midwife helped me. How exactly did this midwife save me? Right after giving birth, my husband said,
"Let my childhood friend hold the baby first."
But the midwife's words made him turn pale. I've always liked taking care of people and couldn't leave those in trouble alone. I have 2 younger brothers and a nurturing personality. I had a husband who needed a lot of care. His name was Austin, and he was such a messy person that it triggered my maternal instincts. Oh, so you couldn't keep up with taking care of him? People who are too caring need to be careful not to be used and abandoned. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was being used by my husband. I met him in my early 20s, and we started dating because he showed up to a group date with a crooked tie, which caught my attention. We both lived alone, but I was like a devoted wife to him. On weekends, I would go to his place and do almost all the housework for him. By the time I reached my late 20s,
"If you're coming over to do chores all the time, wouldn't it be easier if we just lived together and you did them? Shall we get married?"
my husband suggested this, and I agreed without hesitation. But even after we got married, his messy habits didn't change. As the first and second years of our marriage went by, he started treating me with more indifference. No matter what I did for him, he acted like it was his right to have it done. He began prioritizing his friends over spending time with me on weekends, so we spent less and less time together. Even though I liked taking care of him, I felt neglected being left alone. I often vented to my best friend from school, Catherine, but she would remind me,
"I told you to date someone more responsible and kind before you got married. Jill, I know you have a thing for hopeless guys."
She would just say and sigh. When I was dating my husband, she used to get angry on my behalf, but now she seems exasperated. Still, I was grateful she remained my friend, and I tried not to complain about my husband too much. It seems Jill has poor taste in men. Well, in Jill's case, it seems like she intentionally chose a loser, so she has no right to complain. When I got pregnant, my husband was overjoyed, and I thought we could be happy as a family of 3. Well, that ideal didn't come true. Something happened during my pregnancy that changed my feelings for him. When I was suffering from morning sickness, he didn't show any concern for me.
"Morning sickness? Again? Ugh, that must be tough."
He didn't help out at all, even when I couldn't do the chores properly. He just left the house messy. At the time, I kept my dissatisfaction to myself. I had heard of husbands who blamed their wives for suffering during pregnancy, so I thought my situation was still better. But when I entered the stable period of my pregnancy, I went out with Catherine and discovered a secret about my husband. That day, my husband was out early because he had plans with his male friends. Catherine and I were at a shopping mall discussing where to go next when Catherine suddenly looked away from me, her eyes widening, and then quickly looked back at me as if nothing had happened. I have a keen sense for noticing things like that, so I followed her gaze and saw my husband walking with an unfamiliar woman. And they were walking hand in hand like lovers. Seeing that made me feel so down, like I had just witnessed something I shouldn't have.
"Jill, let's take a break at that cafe over there."
Catherine, worried about me, led me to a quiet seat in the back of the cafe. I'm sorry for reacting so weirdly.
"Stress isn't good for a pregnant woman."
It's okay, I said, even though tears were streaming down my face. Why? I've done so much for all.
"You need to face reality now, and I'm going to be honest with you. Because you've forgiven him for so much, Austin thinks he can get away with anything. Still, cheating is his fault, not yours."
I knew Catherine was saying this with my best interests at heart, unlike my husband. Her support kept me from falling apart. I decided to stop taking care of my husband so as not to mislead him anymore. Thanks to Catherine, I finally woke up. If Catherine were a man, she would be a great match for me. After that, I hired a private investigator and got proof of my husband's affair. The other woman was his childhood friend, Sally. I also discovered a certain secret about Sally, so I felt pretty confident. I stopped doing my husband's chores and only did my own. When I did make dinner for him,
"Hey, where's my dinner?"
he asked. When I ignored him, he started buying meals from the convenience store or eating out. After about a week of this, he ran out of clean white socks and complained to me again.
"Hey, why haven't you washed the socks? And if you don't wash the shirts today, there won't be any for tomorrow, you know.
I kept silent, but he persisted.
You used to do all this for me before. What's suddenly wrong with you? I can't do laundry or cook.
When he kept bothering me, I said coldly, I'm not your housekeeper, you know. After that, he stopped talking to me altogether. By the way, he started going to the laundromat for his laundry. It's about time he started doing things himself, right? Is it a relief that he didn't explode? Am I a stay-at-home wife? My husband is lazy and thinks getting angry is too much trouble, so when he does get mad, he must be really upset. By the way, I kept working until I got pregnant. Even before that, I was working and doing all the housework. It's a bit dangerous to continue that after pregnancy, isn't it? But once I stopped doing everything for my husband, I felt so much relief, both emotionally and physically. I woke up wondering why I had been taking care of others while enduring so much hardship. I even thought about going back to my parents' house because I was worried about living with a cheating husband and the stress it might cause. My parents' place is only about a 15-minute drive from our house, and it's convenient for visiting the maternity clinic. But since I wasn't feeling that stressed after all, I decided to continue staying at home. About a month into this, my husband's anger exploded.
Why aren't you doing my laundry? You're ignoring me. You're supposed to be my wife. I married you because you do the housework for me.
When he yelled like that, I thought it was time and called my mother-in-law on the spot. Oh, Mom, I'm sorry, but could you and Dad come over together? I'm thinking about divorcing Austin. When I said that, my parents-in-law came right away. My mother-in-law and I are close, and she always prioritizes me over her son when something happens. I showed the results of the infidelity investigation once my in-laws had gathered. My husband went pale, sweat beading on his forehead, looking completely stunned. It turns out Sally, his childhood friend, was his affair partner. You both know her, right? When I asked, my in-laws got down on their knees with my husband.
Jill, we're deeply sorry for our son's despicable actions.
I'm truly deeply sorry. This is unforgivable.
Austin, apologize properly.
My mother-in-law scolded him, and my husband hastily apologized.
Jill, I can't believe you knew. I'm so sorry.
Even with his apology, I couldn't bring myself to forgive him. Did he think he could do anything just because I'm kind? While I was struggling with morning sickness and everything else, he was out there cheating like it's no big deal.
I'm sorry. Please, forgive me.
I don't think you can be a father to this child. Let's get divorced. When I said that, my husband lifted his head, but as soon as he saw my face, he looked away. I had never shown anger towards him before, so he probably didn't realize I could intimidate with just my gaze. Growing up, I often scolded my younger brothers when they misbehaved, and they would cry and apologize just by meeting my eyes. From then on, my husband and I sat with my in-laws and had a quiet discussion. According to my in-laws, my husband and Sally have been childhood friends since elementary school, visiting each other's homes frequently. Sally has always been fragile, and my husband used to take care of her a lot, but they drifted apart after starting high school in different places. I had thought the relationship ended when Sally moved out of the state after becoming a working adult. At least that's what my in-laws had told me. Then my husband explained further.
Sally came back here 3 years ago.
Huh? 3 years ago, but that's before we got married.
Well, Sally says she was too weak due to illness and couldn't work. She's been receiving help from her parents and recovering at home. She just went out with me on weekends to have fun.
He said that, but there were also photos of Sally entering and leaving hotels. I found it strange. How could she do that if she's ill? But it looks like she's going to hotels.
She started going to hotels about 2 years ago, but she said it's okay for her to do that. But she doesn't have the energy for things like childbirth.
He said that, but both my parents and I were puzzled. What kind of convenient illness is this? It's severe enough that she can't work, right? Shouldn't she avoid strenuous activities and such? Is it something related to mental health? At that moment, my husband seemed to have exhausted all explanations about Sally. I was already fed up and felt there was no point in listening to his explanations, so I decided to just let the conversation flow. Maybe you should have married Sally instead, Austin.
Sally is delicate and can't handle household chores, so I'd have to take care of her forever, right? That's why you're different, Jill. You can do anything.
When my husband said that, both my in-laws and I were furious.
What do you think marriage is about? Marrying Jill with such thoughts.
Who do you think you're talking to? You can't even be a husband or a father. I'm going back to my parents' house. When I yelled in anger, my husband, visibly shaken by my intensity, turned pale and apologized repeatedly.
I'm sorry. I don't want to divorce you, Jill. From now on, I'll cherish you, Jill.
It's too late. I'll involve a lawyer, so stay away from me from now on. Immediately after that, I packed my belongings, and the next day my parents came to pick me up. My husband tried to stop me, but he got yelled at by my father and ended up standing there half in tears. What a pathetic guy. I guess this is what you get when you like bad boys. It's not like I specifically like bad boys, you know. I just want to be treated nicely by someone I like, and I want to be valued. I just have a strong desire to take care of others. After that, I went back to my parents' house, and my father started driving me to and from work. His workplace is a bit far, so I end up waiting at the office entrance for about 20 to 30 minutes on the way back, but it's fine with a chair there. But about 5 days after returning home, my husband started ambushing me after work. He arrives about 30 minutes earlier than me, and since his workplace is closer, he must have hurried over.
How dare you treat me like that the other day? I got lectured for hours by my dad and mom after that, you know?
He stormed into the hallway shouting like that. Well, if you got lectured, maybe you should reflect on your actions. It's your fault for cheating, so what are you even saying?
Anyway, I won't be satisfied until I get an apology from you. Get down and apologize.
We were arguing like that, drawing attention from nearby employees. What a mess. When my dad's car arrived, my husband hurriedly fled, so I was finally free. But even after that, my husband kept ambushing me after work, fleeing whenever my dad's car showed up. I had no choice but to wait on another floor in the company, then get a call when my father arrived and get into the car right away. But if it's like this every day, it's tough for me too.
Can't you work remotely?
Yes, Catherine suggested it to me over the phone, and I immediately consulted my boss. Since my job is administrative, I was allowed to work remotely until I go on maternity leave. My husband seemed afraid of my father, so thankfully he didn't come all the way to our house, and I could finally relax and focus on work. He knows I'm pregnant, so he shouldn't come near. Is he trying to harass me? If so, that's beyond human decency. Since entering the final month of pregnancy, I've been staying indoors as much as possible. When I go out, it's always with my father. Some might think I should just hurry up and divorce my husband, but divorce isn't that easy, and I didn't want extra stress during pregnancy, so I decided to wait until after giving birth. 3 days before the due date, my water broke, and my mother took me to the hospital. I went straight into labor and gave birth. It was a difficult time, but the joy of seeing my child born brought tears to my eyes. However, that moment of joy was overshadowed by an incident. When the midwife said to me, "Look, there's Mom! You did a great job, Mama!" and tried to hand me my daughter, but suddenly my husband and Sally barged into the delivery room.
Nurse, wait a moment. I want Sally to hold the baby first.
At that, both the midwife and I were stunned. She wasn't a nurse, but rather a midwife, I thought, bewildered. The midwife firmly held her daughter and glared at my husband and Sally, refusing to hand her over. Without realizing the tension, my husband and Sally said,
"Come on, Sally, it's your turn now. Ha ha."
She looks like me. Feeling a bit anxious, I intervened to stop them. What are you thinking?
Sally can't have children. Besides, if you and I divorce, this child will be ours.
My husband spoke disdainfully of me as he tried to snatch our daughter from the midwife, but the midwife held her firmly, determined not to let her be taken away. "There's no way I'm letting you hold her. You've got some nerve. Have some shame. Know your place." At that, my husband started losing his temper.
Who do you think you are? I'll file a complaint against this hospital.
Should we ask your parents and your in-laws if your claim is correct?
Look, everyone's here, aren't they?
The midwife said that, and when my husband and Sally looked behind them, there were both my parents and my in-laws standing there. My husband and Sally turned pale.
They weren't here just a moment ago,
my husband muttered. I had refused to have anyone present at the birth and had agreed with both my parents and my in-laws that I would contact them once the baby was born. I felt embarrassed to be seen suffering like that, so I didn't want anyone there. But by the time I finished giving birth, it seems my husband had called his mother.
I want to talk to Jill again.
My mother-in-law was appalled and told my husband that I was having a baby.
Jill is in the middle of giving birth right now, is she not? Wait a while to talk about it. Fine, then I'll go see Jill myself. If I say I'm her husband, they'll let me in.
My husband said that and headed towards the maternity ward, so my mother-in-law contacted my parents. It seems both set of parents rushed to stop my husband. That happened right around the time I had finished giving birth. What perfect timing. Also, that midwife is quite assertive, huh? By the way, the midwife's name is Catherine. Since high school, Catherine had wanted to work in obstetrics. I'll leave it to you, Catherine, for my childbirth.
Sure, it's a promise, right?
We were saying that to each other when we were students. When I became an adult, I had forgotten about that promise, but when I wondered if I might be pregnant, I consulted Catherine, and she said,
Why don't you come to our clinic? It's close to your home, right? Remember when I promised to handle your childbirth, Jill? I can finally fulfill that promise,
she said, reminding me of a promise made 10 years ago. The hospital I relied on was a private clinic that accommodated midwives and patients' schedules to some extent. Am I okay with a friend being my midwife? Did I rely on Catherine for help often? It seems like there were a lot of opinions online about not wanting acquaintances to handle their babies. Back in high school, we were both on the swim team and often went on trips together, soaking in the saunas. I guess I didn't feel uncomfortable since we're familiar with each other's bodies. Maybe it's just my nerves of steel. Then I told my husband loud enough for Catherine, my parents, and in-laws to hear.
I know very well how much you've been causing Jill's suffering. I've heard about you since we were dating and I was there at your wedding, remember? Didn't I tell you? Please make Jill happy. You're Jill's... You made Jill handle all the housework even though she works longer hours, right? I've heard that even during her pregnancy when Jill was suffering from morning sickness, you didn't lift a finger to help. I can't forgive someone like you being Jill's husband, not as a friend.
When Catherine said this, both my parents-in-law and my parents turned their stern faces to me and my husband.
Jill, is that true? Not just cheating, but has Austin been causing trouble for you all along?
When asked by my father-in-law, I nodded. Yes, he just left everything to me. Still, during pregnancy, I wanted him to help even a little. Since we were dating, I've been taking care of things at Austin's house, and since we got married, he has never done any housework. As I said this, my parents and in-laws confronted my husband, each blaming him with accusatory words. Then Catherine said to me,
Indeed, the one who deserves to hold her first is the mom who worked hard.
And she let me hold our daughter, and I cried at the warmth of our daughter. While I had been aware of becoming a mother, holding her made me resolve to protect this child forever. When everyone fell silent, I turned a cold gaze to my husband and said, I want a divorce soon. I'm not interested in you anymore, but I'll definitely demand child support.
The child will be under my custody. You should pay child support. Sally can't have children due to her illness. Isn't that pitiful?
Have you really confirmed that she can't have children? By the way, what's the name of her illness? I heard from the private investigator in the infidelity investigation that Sally is married and seems to be dedicated to her husband. Still, if you care so much about Sally, you should protect her for the rest of her life. When I said this mockingly, Sally showed signs of agitation. Jill, what are you saying? There's no way that's true. Suddenly becoming suspicious, my husband also began to doubt Sally.
You're kidding, right? You're married? Oh yeah, take me home sometime. You live with your parents, right?
When asked this, Sally did nod. My husband's complexion rapidly worsened. At that moment, Catherine said,
This is causing unnecessary stress for Jill and the baby, so please leave.
And with that, my husband and Sally were shown out. My parents-in-law were furious and took my husband and Sally home, so I returned to the hospital room and received comfort from my parents. My husband was fooled by Sally for 3 whole years. Just how crazy is Sally, seriously? So what was Sally's illness in the end? I heard the rest of the story from my in-laws. Apparently, Sally has severe asthma as a child and often missed school because of it. But as an adult, she's been perfectly healthy. 6 years ago, Sally met a good person and got married, but due to Sally's issues, they struggled to conceive and underwent infertility treatments. However, nothing worked out well, and their relationship deteriorated. Still, they continued their facade of a marriage, and 3 years ago, due to Sally's husband's job, they returned to our town, where my husband and Sally crossed paths again. Sally hid the fact that she was married and tearfully claimed she couldn't be with anyone due to her illness. My sympathetic husband couldn't abandon Sally, I heard.
Jill takes care of everything at home, and even if I cheat, Jill will probably forgive me, right?
I heard he told my in-laws that, and I was amazed. And as my husband became deeply infatuated with Sally, he started thinking,
I have to protect Sally.
When he heard I was pregnant, he even thought about divorcing me after childbirth and raising the child with Sally. From this incident, I learned that being too lenient with people isn't always a good thing. After that, my husband and I divorced without property division. My husband knelt down and apologized to me during our discussion.
That was a moment of confusion. I was deceived by Sally.
He tried to avoid divorce with those words, but I remained firm. I don't want to deal with you anymore. Let's just get divorced quickly, I said firmly. My husband, almost in tears, filled out the divorce papers. Afterwards, I claimed compensation from both my husband and Sally. It turned out Sally's husband also found out about her affair. They ended up getting divorced too. My husband and Sally also parted ways. My husband has apparently started a side job apart from his main job, leading to days without rest. Until now, all the household chores have been my responsibility, so it seems like he's struggling with just daily life. But apparently, he hasn't been relying on his parents. Originally, my husband was indifferent to his family, and even during his single days, he was somewhat distant from his parents. After my marriage to him, my relationship with his parents was good, but our divorce has deepened the rift between them and my husband. Incidentally, Sally has no social skills, having gone from being a freelancer to a full-time housewife. She can't find a full-time job, so she handles several part-time jobs, keeping it busy every day with work. The end of those who betray their spouses and children. As for me, I've come to live at home and I'm raising my kids with the support of my parents and close relatives. My in-laws visit us once a month to see their granddaughter. Sometimes I don't sleep well and I am exhausted, but every time my daughter can roll over or walk, I feel happy. My relationship with Catherine continues, and she often visits to see my daughter. To me, Catherine is a benefactor. If Catherine ever needs help, I want to be there for her. It's been a year since the divorce, and my daughter is now 1 year old. I've returned to work while my stay-at-home mom looks after my daughter. I work remotely while also going into the main office 3 days a week. Now, watching my daughter grow is my greatest joy. As a mother, I want to protect my daughter firmly. Thank you for listening this far. I won't spoil my daughter too much. It's great that there are many supportive people around. Hang in there with parenting. Thus, Jill cut off her husband, who only took advantage of her and did not even do things for himself. Her husband now, without anyone to take care of him, must be leading lonely days. In the world, there are various types of people. Those who are good at relying on others, those who are good at taking care of others, and more. Both probably do not lead to good results.